My fiancé said I wasn't wife material and left. Now my husband reads his messages and smiles. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved one. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. MPO, you're just not wife material. That sentence hit me like a punch to the stomach. After 4 years together, I thought we were building something. I stood by him through job changes, late-night stress, and family drama. I cooked his meals, planned dates, supported his dreams, and tried to be everything he needed. And still, those were the words he chose when he left. He said I was too independent, too career-driven, too loud. That he wanted someone more elegant, softer, someone who would let him lead without question. He found her a few weeks later, someone who fit the mold he had in his head. I saw their engagement photo on Facebook a few months after the breakup. I won't lie, it crushed me. I fell hard. I stopped eating properly, cried more days than not, and questioned everything about myself. I wondered if I was truly unlovable, if wanting a career made me too masculine, if my worth only existed in how delicate or agreeable I could be. Then something shifted. I started therapy. I picked up weights for the first time in my life. I learned to sit with my thoughts instead of running from them. Slowly, I started to rebuild. I got promoted. I started sleeping better. I found a version of myself I had forgotten I could be. Then, through a friend's birthday party, I met him. No pressure, no games, just easy, genuine connection. He asked questions, listened, remembered little things. Our second date lasted 6 hours. On our fourth, he brought me flowers just because I mentioned I liked lilies. He told me my strength was beautiful, that my ambition inspired him. 6 months later, he proposed at sunrise on a mountain trail. I said yes through happy tears. We married that fall, surrounded by people who truly loved us. I felt peace. I felt seen. One night not long after, a message popped up on my phone. It was my ex. A long paragraph about how he missed me, how he realized he made a mistake, how he kept thinking about me, and how I was probably married by now. He ended it with, "I hope you're happy, real." My husband glanced over, read the message, then looked at me. He smiled. Just smiled. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He said I wasn't wife material. But my wedding ring, my peace, and my husband's eyes when he looks at me every morning say otherwise. You're too focused on your career. That's not what I want in a wife. That was his excuse. After dating for nearly 3 years, supporting him while he bounced between jobs, helping him pay off credit card debt, that's what he said when he ended it. I wasn't wife material because I didn't want to be a stay-at-home partner, because I had dreams beyond being someone's support system. At first, I questioned myself. Maybe I was too intense, too driven. Maybe wanting to build something of my own made me too much. I cried for a week. Then I got angry. Not the kind of loud, dramatic anger, but the quiet, focused kind. The kind that changes everything. I buried myself in work. I'd been sitting on an idea for a while, a tech platform for women in finance to connect, share resources, and grow. I'd pitched it a few times, but never had the confidence to go all in. After the breakup, something unlocked in me. I stopped waiting for someone else's approval. I built a team. I pitched again. I worked 18-hour days and ran on caffeine and grit. 2 years later, I was a CEO with funding and a fast-growing user base. My company was featured in Forbes. I was invited to speak on panels I used to dream of attending. That's when I met him. He was calm, grounded, confident in a way that didn't need to overpower anyone. A nutritionist with his own private practice. He didn't flinch when I mentioned my schedule. He asked about my company with genuine curiosity, and he never once acted like my success threatened him. On our third date, he cooked me dinner from scratch and sent me home with leftovers because he knew I wouldn't have time to meal prep. I didn't know men like that existed. We moved in together a year later. He made our house feel like a home. He celebrates every win, reminds me to rest, and tells me I'm brilliant at least once a day. Last month, we posted a job opening. Guess who applied? My ex. I recognized the name instantly. Same resume, just a few more years added on. I didn't even need to respond. One of my hiring managers rejected his application with a polite, "Not a good fit." It was poetic. I wasn't wife material because I had ambition. Now I'm a CEO, married to a man who respects and supports every part of who I am. And dinner? It's waiting for me when I get home. You're starting to age out of your prime, you know? I just want someone younger. That's what he said. At 29. After 5 years together. After talking about marriage and kids and building a future. He dropped that line like it was just another Tuesday. Said he met someone fresh, fun, and full of life. She was 22 and worked at his gym. I felt like I'd been replaced by a shinier version of myself, but with less experience and none of the emotional investment. For a while, I believed him. I stared at my face in the mirror every day, wondering if my laugh lines were really that obvious, if my body looked different. If I'd lost something I couldn't get back. The self-doubt was loud. Then something shifted. I started showing up for myself. Not for revenge, not for validation, just to feel good again. I cleaned up my diet, started lifting weights, tried yoga. I found an old spark I hadn't seen in years. A friend from college, now a photographer, asked if I'd ever considered modeling. I laughed, then said yes. What started as a weekend shoot turned into part-time work. I got booked for fitness brands, skincare lines, and even a local fashion show. I was glowing inside and out. That's when I met him, my now husband, a personal trainer who had followed my modeling account and messaged something respectful and funny. Our first conversation lasted hours. He didn't just compliment my looks. He admired my discipline, my story, my strength. He never once brought up age. He said I had presence, grace, power. We fell in love slowly, deeply. He proposed during a sunrise hike, with no one around except us and the mountain. We got married last spring, barefoot on a beach, with only close friends and family. He tells me every day that I'm stunning. He brags about me to his clients. He makes me feel seen. A few months ago, I got a message on Instagram. My ex saying he made a mistake, that he missed the way I made him feel, that I was still the most beautiful woman he ever knew. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I simply blocked him. He left for a younger version of me, thinking youth was everything. But I didn't fade. I flourished. And now, I'm married to a man who sees me, not as someone aging out, but as someone who's only just hitting her stride. I can't imagine waking up next to you forever. That's what he said before he left. No warning, no kindness, just those words and a door closing behind him. He said he needed someone who took better care of themselves, that he wanted a partner who looked like they belonged in a fitness magazine, not someone who was always tired and letting herself go. And then, as if it couldn't hurt more, he left me for a girl from his gym. I cried for days. I couldn't eat. Not because I wanted to get skinny, but because the pain sat heavy in my chest. His words stayed in my head like a song on repeat. I started doubting my worth, my body, everything about me. Then one day, I woke up and something in me decided I wasn't going to stay broken. So I changed, but not for him. I signed up for a walking club. Then I started jogging. Slowly, week by week, I felt stronger. I learned how to cook real food, how to move in ways that felt good, not punishing. I didn't care about being skinny. I wanted to be mine again. 6 months in, I ran a charity 5K for cancer research. It wasn't easy, but I crossed that finish line with tears in my eyes and pride in my chest. That's where I met him, my future husband. He'd been volunteering at the event, handing out water and cheering for runners. He smiled when I crossed the line and said, "You look like you just won gold." We started talking after that. He wasn't obsessed with looks. He cared about who I was, how I treated people, and how I treated myself. When he learned why I started running, he didn't pity me. He admired me. He loved me through my growth, through the good and the hard days. A year later, he proposed after we ran our first half marathon together. We got married at a small lodge surrounded by trees, with laughter, love, and zero talk about anyone's weight. Now, I coach women who want to feel good in their bodies. I run a small fitness page online, sharing tips, motivation, and reminders that self-love is more powerful than shame. And guess who follows that page? Yep, him. The one who left me when I wasn't enough. He likes every post but never comments. He once said he couldn't imagine waking up next to me forever. Now, someone else gets to, and he wouldn't change a thing. You always have to have the last word. Why can't you just agree with me for once? That was one of the last things he said before he walked out. He told me he wanted someone easier, someone who didn't talk back all the time. What he really meant was someone who wouldn't challenge him, wouldn't have opinions, wouldn't speak up. And not long after, he found her, a quiet girl who nodded through everything he said. At first, I thought he might be right. Maybe I was too opinionated. Maybe I talked too much, argued too often. I questioned if being outspoken made me unlovable. But deep down, I knew something else was true. He was never comfortable with my voice because it made him face things he didn't want to see. So I leaned into it. Instead of getting quieter, I got louder, not with volume, but with purpose. I started posting online about confidence, setting boundaries, and finding your voice again after being silenced. What started as short posts turned into long articles. Then came the invitations, first to panels, then workshops, then speaking events. Before I knew it, I was standing on stages, speaking to rooms filled with women who had been told the same thing I was, that they were too much. But we weren't too much. We were never enough for the wrong people. At one of my events, I met him, the man who would become my husband. He was setting up the projector, managing the sound, making sure everyone else had what they needed. He watched my whole talk from the back, then came up after and said, "The world needs more of what you're doing." He never tried to dim my light. He adjusted the spotlight so it hit just right. Now, he travels with me to every event. He handles my tech, builds my website, edits my videos. And every time I step on stage, I know I'm not just doing it for me. I'm doing it for every woman who was ever told to stay quiet. A few weeks ago, I got a DM from my ex. It was long, apologetic, full of phrases like, "I didn't know what I had," and "You've really become something." He ended it with, "I still think about you sometime." I showed it to my husband. He raised an eyebrow, chuckled, and said, "Of course he does." We laughed together. He wanted someone who didn't talk back. Now I speak to thousands, and I bring my husband with me every step of the way. "You've been through too much. I don't think I can handle it." That's what he said before walking away. I had opened up to him about my past, the trauma, the scars, the things I was still working. I thought being honest would bring us closer. Instead, he said it was too heavy, that he wanted something easier, lighter. He didn't want to be with someone who was always in repair. For a while, I believed him. Maybe I was too broken. Maybe love wasn't for people like me, people still trying to stitch themselves back together. I cried in quiet places. I stopped trusting my voice. And one day, sitting alone in a garden near my apartment, I realized I couldn't keep waiting for someone else to save me. So I saved myself. I went to therapy every week. I read every book I could on healing, trauma, boundaries, and worth. I cried in sessions, got angry, learned to speak for the little girl inside me who never had the chance before. Healing wasn't quick, and it wasn't pretty. But slowly, I came back to life. I began to smile again. I found new routines, met new friends, and built a new version of myself. One that didn't apologize for existing. One that no longer begged to be understood. And then I met him. He didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. He listened without judgment, held my hand during quiet moments, and never once flinched when I talked about where I'd been. He told me healing wasn't a burden. It was proof of strength. I remember the first time I had a flashback and expected him to leave. He just sat beside me and said, "You're safe now." A year later, we got married in the very garden I once cried in. The same spot where I thought love was impossible became the place I said, "I do." Surrounded by flowers, family, and soft music, I chose someone who chose all of me, even the parts that had once scared someone else away. A few months after the wedding, I got a message from my ex. It was long, apologetic, filled with regret. He said he didn't realize what he gave up, that he sees now how much I've grown, that maybe he left too soon. I didn't reply. His apology came too late. He left when I needed support most. And now that I've healed, I have someone who stayed, someone who never needed me to be perfect. Just whole, just real, just me. "You'll embarrass me in front of my colleagues." That's what he said right before a big corporate event. He didn't like my dress, said my laugh was too loud, that I wasn't polished enough to stand beside him. Then he added, "I need someone who looks like they belong in that room, someone people admire." He wanted a trophy wife. I was just me. He went alone. And the next day, he ended things. Told me I didn't fit the image he wanted for his future. I cried, of course. For days. I started thinking maybe I was too awkward, too plain, too ordinary. But after a while, the sadness turned into a quiet fire. If I wasn't good enough for him, I would become more than enough for myself. I learned how to present myself, not for others, but for confidence. I studied how to speak with clarity and strength. I read about personal style, presence, posture. I didn't try to become someone else. I became her, the version of me I had been hiding. I built my own business. It started small, from a laptop at my kitchen table. Then it grew, fast. I led teams, raised capital, gave talks, and shared my story. My name started showing up on podcasts, blogs, and panels. Eventually, Forbes named me one of their 30 under 30. And during all that growth, I met him. My husband. He met me at a conference and said, "You lit up the room." He didn't want me to shrink. He asked me to sit in the front row, speak on stage, and take up space. He's the kind of man who brags about my wins to strangers, who lifts his glass every time I achieve something new, who calls me his queen, not as a line, but as a truth. We got married in an art museum, surrounded by beauty and love. He gave a toast that made the whole room cry, about how proud he is to walk beside me. A few weeks later, I got a DM from my ex. Just one line. "Wow, look at you now." I smiled. I didn't reply. He wanted someone to show off. Now, I'm the one on magazine covers, keynotes, and stages, with a husband who loves being in the crowd, watching me shine. He wanted a trophy. I became the prize. It's not what it looks like, but honestly, you haven't been fun in a while. That's what he said after I caught him with his coworker. In our apartment, on a Wednesday. He didn't apologize. He blamed me, said I'd become boring, that I was always working, always tired, not the same girl he met years ago. He made me feel like I caused it, like his cheating was somehow my failure. I believed him for a while. I spent months replaying every moment, every argument, wondering if I had really pushed him away. I stopped writing. I stopped smiling. I even started thinking I deserved it. Until one day, I sat down and started typing. Not a text to him, not a journal entry. A story. My story. It began as a way to let it out, but the words poured out faster than I could stop them. I wrote about the betrayal, the gaslighting, the shame. But I also wrote about the rise, about reclaiming my voice, about finding laughter again, not for him, but for me. That draft turned into a manuscript. A friend passed it to a small publisher, and that's how I met him. My now husband, an editor with sharp eyes, kind feedback, and an unmatched respect for words and for women. He didn't fall in love with a broken girl. He fell in love with a woman who had put herself back together, one page at a time. He helped me polish the book, gently pushing me to dig deeper in the parts one was scared to share. When it was published, it took off. Women messaged me every day thanking me for putting their pain into words. It wasn't just a book. It was healing, for me and for others. We got married in a cozy bookstore with candles and paper flowers. He slipped a ring on my finger and whispered, "You've always been the story I wanted to read." A month after the book hit bestseller lists, I got a notification, a new review. 5 stars. No comment. But the username? A subtle variation of my ex's old gaming handle. He bought the book. He read every word. He rated it 5 stars. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He cheated and blamed me. I wrote about it. He paid for it. And now, I sleep next to a man who edits my drafts, cheers for my voice, and never once makes me feel like I'm too much. He tried to break me. I turned it into a bestseller. You'll never find someone better than me. Those were his last words before walking out, on Valentine's Day no less. No fight, no warning. Just a cold, robotic explanation that he wasn't feeling it anymore, followed by a box of my things and the sound of the door closing. I sat there, still holding the little gift I had wrapped for a handwritten letter, a new watch he had mentioned in passing, and tickets to a concert he used to love. None of it mattered anymore. For days, I played his words over and over in my mind. You'll never find someone better. At first, they crushed me. Then they started to piss me off. He thought he was the best I'd ever get, that no one else would choose me, love me, stay, that I'd sit around and regret losing him. So I didn't look for better. I became better. I started focusing on myself again. Therapy, new hobbies, long walks, real laughter. I learned to enjoy my own company. I stopped dating for validation and started living for joy. Then I met him, my now husband. We met on a hiking trip I almost skipped. He offered me trail mix and a stupid pun about altitude. We talked for hours under the stars that night, wrapped in blankets and stories. He didn't just listen, he heard me. Every thought, every fear, every dream. He didn't say I was too emotional when I cried. He held me. He didn't call me too picky when I set boundaries. He respected them. A year later, he surprised me with a proposal in Iceland, just the two of us, standing beneath the northern lights. He had written a letter, just like the one I once wrote and never gave. Only this time, the words were right, and the love was real. We got married in a tiny chapel surrounded by snow, and people who actually showed up for me, who saw me. A few months into marriage, my ex started messaging again. I made a mistake. I think about you all the time. I see you're happy. I messed up. I didn't even open most of them. My husband did. He read them aloud in a dramatic voice, like a soap opera, while I brushed my teeth or folded laundry. We laughed. Every time. The man who said I'd never find someone better? He was right in one way. I didn't find someone better. I found someone nothing like him, and that made all the difference. You're just too much. I can't carry you anymore. That's what he said the night he left. I was sitting on the floor, mid-panic attack, tears streaming down my face. I had been struggling with depression, trying to hold it together, trying to be normal. But to him, I wasn't worth the effort. He called me a burden, said I was draining the life out of him. Then he packed his things and left, just like that. I blamed myself, thought maybe he was right. Maybe love only worked if you were easy to deal with. So I went quiet, shut down. I barely spoke to friends, avoided family, and pretended I was fine when I wasn't. But something inside me refused to give up. I started therapy again, really committed to it. I learned how to sit with my feelings, not run from them. I read about emotional regulation, mental health, self-compassion. Slowly, I became my own support system. And then I started helping others too. What began as a private healing journey turned into something bigger. I started sharing my story, first online, then in small groups. I became an advocate for mental health awareness, talking about depression, anxiety, trauma, without shame. And that's where I met him, at a mental health seminar, of all places. He was giving a talk about trauma-informed communication. He made eye contact during my Q&A, and something clicked. He wasn't scared of emotion. He welcomed it. We went for coffee afterward and ended up talking for hours. He didn't flinch when I told him about my struggles. He leaned in literally and emotionally, said I was brave, beautiful, whole. A year and a half later, he proposed at the same seminar where we met. We got married in the spring, in a garden full of sunlight and soft music and people who understood healing. The week of our wedding, my ex sent me a message. No apology, just a short, weak attempt to reconnect. Something like, "I heard you're getting married. Hope you're happy. I miss us sometimes." My husband saw the notification before I did. He handed me the phone, looked at the name, and grinned. Guess some people only see your worth when it's too late. We deleted it without replying. He once said I wasn't enough. Now I'm too much, too full of purpose, too full of truth, for his ego to ever handle again. And I wouldn't change a thing.